Hello, my name is Rickard, and in this tutorial, I'm going to show you how you can achieve color harmony using Photoshop. I just released an ebook called Color Harmony, Why Hulk Wears Purple Pants. I'll include a link to that in the description of this video, but in it I cover all the various different types of color harmony, how you can achieve them, when you want to use which one, and also provide a bunch of examples of different color harmonies so that you can get a sense of how that color theory actually translates into the real world and how you can actually use it to enhance your images and create more emotional impact. Now, what I want to do in this tutorial is take 5 images, determine a color harmony for them, and then adjust them in Photoshop to that color harmony. Now, if you want to follow along, I have included a link in the description where you can get all the assets. Otherwise, if you want to get a copy of the color wheel that I use, I have included a link to that as well. You can buy this on Amazon. I have 2 of them. I have this one and this one. This is actually the one I grew up with, meaning this is the first one I used, I think 20 years ago. I ordered this Nucly. It's the same company, but I did notice that the printing is quite dark in the cyan and magenta, at least in the copy that I got. So for that reason, during this tutorial, I'm going to be using this one here. I think the colors are just a little bit better on it, meaning you can see the colors a little better. Although, as a general rule, this is probably my favorite color wheel, and hopefully the newer printings of it won't have this dark blue problem. All right, having said all that, we're going to take our first image, which you can see here. Now for this, we want to establish first what our key color is. So when you're doing a color harmony, that's always the first step. What is your key color? Now, key color is kind of broadly defined as the color in your image that you don't want to change or that you want as your basis point. Now, that might bring up, well, how do you determine which color you don't want to change? Well, a few things I would say. One is if you have a product and you're doing product photography, then obviously the product you can't change the color of, that would become your key color. If you're doing a portrait, usually skin tones kind of define your key color. You have to work around those. Also, it could be a strong color in your dress, or if you're shooting a tree, it might be the color of the tree. So it's whatever color you want to base your color harmony off of could be defined as your key color. So in this image here, I'm going to start with the yellow-orange dress as our key color. So you can see that here we've got yellow-orange, and the complementary for that is blue-violet. So in Photoshop, we're going to adjust this image so that it has a complementary harmony. Now, complementary means it's directly across from our key color in the color wheel is going to be our supporting or harmonious color. And we're going to use both colors in the design. So let's dive into Photoshop. All right, let's go to File, Open, and in the Assets folder, we're going to start with the Nucly Complementary Harmony JPEG. And as the name implies, for this one, we're going to use a complementary color scheme. That means we're primarily working with 2 colors. Now, I have a little library here that I've made, and I'm going to go ahead and grab this complementary yellow is our key color in this. You can see that here. That is the color of her dress, and her skin color isn't really that far off. So what we're going to do here is we're going to give our background this blue-violet color. So to do that, first I'm going to select her out of the background. To do that, we'll just go to Select and then Subject. And then I want to invert my selection. To do that, we're going to do Shift Command I, and then we can go ahead and add a curve layer. Now to add blue, we could go to blue. That's going to make our background lighter while it's making it blue. The other thing we can do is take the 2 other colors and make them darker. So here, if I went to red and then green, it's going to give me blue, but instead of making the background lighter when it's adding blue, it's going to make it darker when adding blue. So this is something that you need to think with when you're working with curves and adjusting colors. If you want to add a color and make something brighter, then simply go ahead and add that color. If you want to add color and make it darker, go to the two opposite colors and add darkness in those. I'm going to go ahead and reset here. I think actually just adding the blue looked better. So we'll just go ahead and add the blue like so. The other thing I want to do is I want to make the yellow of her dress a little bit stronger. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and make a copy of my curve. And if I just double click here and then go to my mask here, I'm going to select that mask there. I can invert it. And then here, I'm going to reset my curve. I just want to make this a little bit brighter, maybe a little more contrasty, get a little more of that color popping through. Now, the problem here is as I do this, you can see we've actually overexposed her skin. So to fix that, I can go into the select and mask here, and then with my auto selection tool, put this on subtract, and just kind of paint over the areas that I don't want in this mask. Just like that. Let's hit OK. And there you can see now the mask is just affecting her dress, giving us a little bit more of that nice yellow-orange color. I think we might want it to be just a little bit more on the orange side. So let's go to our red and maybe just lift that a tiny bit. I'm going to get some of that kind of greenish color out of the shadows there. And just like that, I think is enough. And then the last thing I might want to do with this image is give the whole thing a nice vignette. To do that, I'm going to go to my circular or elliptical marquee tool and just from the center kind of build out the shape that I want my vignette to be, and then I'm going to go and add a curve. Now in this case, even though I do want the curve to be on the outside, I'm not going to invert it before I make my adjustment layer and my mask. And the reason for that is if I go into my mask here and add the feather here rather than through a Gaussian blur, I can control it after the fact, and then by hitting invert here, I now have a nicely built vignette that I can adjust in real time. So I can adjust the feather of it here, but then also with a command transform, Command T, I can adjust the size of my vignette as well. So with this one layer, I have full control of my vignette. I can adjust the feathering here, and then I can adjust the size by transforming my original circle shape, and then with the curve itself, I can adjust the lightness or the darkness. And in this case, I want to make it darker in my RGB curve and then go back to my blue and just lift it a little bit. That's going to push a little bit of that blue color into the shadows all around. And overall, I think that looks really good. Here you can see the before, kind of drab looking, and then the after, got that nice kick of color. And then complementary color schemes, you'll find them very often in cartoons, comics, anything directed toward a younger audience. Complementary color schemes work really well. In this case, you can see just adding these complementary colors kind of gives the whole image sort of a Beauty and the Beast vibe. Definitely something a little bit more aimed at children, or a younger audience, I should say, because even young adults do tend to prefer complementary color schemes. For our next image, we're going to be doing a split complementary. Now, split complementary is you are using the two colors directly on either side of your complementary color. That's called split complementary. I find that split complementary is the color harmony that I use the most. It's basically very similar to complementary, but a little more sophisticated with a little more colors in your image. So in this case, I really like this image. And although my instinct would be to start with the kind of gold color as my key color, I really like the violet in the sunglasses, and that's the color I want to base my harmony off of. So I'm going to use violet as my key color, which means I want to have yellow-green and yellow-orange. Now, we could say her skin tones are kind of in the yellow-orange range. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the background and push it toward the yellow-green range. And let's see how that looks. And let's go to File Open. The next file I want to open is the Lane Split Harmony 2. And for this, we're going to be using a split harmony, and we're actually going to be using violet as our key color. So let's go ahead and pull this color wheel in here. I'll just place this in the corner for now. But with our blue violet as our key color here, which is going to be the color inside these glasses, you can see that her skin tones will fall nicely in this orange gold color here. And then for our yellow in our background, I want to push that toward more of a lime green color. And that's going to give us a little bit more of a sophisticated color palette. So first, I need to separate her from the background. We'll do that with a select subject. And then I'm going to do Shift Command I, which will invert my selection so that it's selecting the background. And here I'm going to add a hue saturation. And with the hue saturation, what you can do is select this right here and then select the color that you want to target. In this case, I want to target this yellow in the background. And look what happens with this color bar here when I select it. Right away, this part of the image has been selected out. And now here I can start moving my hue left or right. And in this case, I want it to be a lime green, so I'm going to push it just toward the right until I have that kind of lime green color. I don't want it to go toward a cyan or even a full green. I do want it to be kind of a lime green. So I think around there looks good. Maybe give it a little more saturation as well. Okay, then next I want to pump up the violet in her glasses. To do that, I'm going to select the background again, zoom in here, and with my quick selection, just paint inside the glasses here. Just like that is enough. Okay, and then here we're going to go ahead and add a curves layer. Here I think I can just go to the blue, pump it up. It already has those streaks of the violet in there. So kind of the combined impression that you get from mixing all those colors is this nice violet key color right there. And then finally, I do want to push a little bit of this violet color into our shadows. To do that, I'm just going to add an overall curve to the whole image. And if I go here to my blues, you can see that the darker areas that have blue in them is this large chunk here. And then here in the lighter areas, we don't have much. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a point right around here so that we're not really affecting any of the light areas. And then here, I'm going to pull up the bottom, and you're going to see that we're kind of getting a more blue violet tone into our shadows when I do this. And I don't want to overdo it. I think right about there looks fine. Here you can see the before and the after. It just pulls in a little bit more of that color into our scene. And I think overall that looks good. Here you can see the before and the after. We've given it this color scheme, and split complementary is kind of the color scheme that I probably use the most often. It's a nice play on the complementary color scheme, but it's a little more sophisticated and gives you more colors to play with. So here you can see that the original, if we had just pushed more blue into it, would have given us a complementary color scheme. But for this image, I just think a split complementary color scheme looks far better. All right, for our next image, we're going to do another split complementary, but this time I want to use the skin tone as our key color. So if we look at our color wheel again, here is orange. That's where skin tones are generally going to be, so we'll use that as our key color. Now for this, with split complementary, I want to use blue-green and a blue-violet in the background. Now you can see in the current image, there's a lot of colors in that background. What I want to do is I want to pull all those either toward our blue-green or toward our blue-violet. So let's dive back into Photoshop. All right, now I'm going to go to File, Open. We're going to do one more split complementary. This one's going to be a little more involved because we have so many colors in this image, and those are going to take away from our color harmony. So what we're going to want to do is suppress some of these colors. So first, let's pull in our split. And in this case, I'm going to use the orange of her skin as our key color. And then what I want to do with the background is I want to push all these blue colors a little bit more toward a blue-green color, and then take these other colors like the pinks and the purples and push them more toward a violet blue color. So let's go ahead and first select her again under the background, and then we'll do Shift Command I so that we're selecting the background. And here I'm going to use a hue saturation. Let's go hue saturation. And first I want to select our blue colors. So I'll select that. And those I want to push more toward a blue-green. So kind of a cyanic color, so something like this. And then next I want to select these more reddish colors here. And I want to push those more toward violet. So kind of a violet blue color, so something like this. So those are the basic colors I want. Now I want to get rid of these extraneous colors. I'm going to do that just using a layer that's set to color blending mode. And then with a nice big soft brush right here, I'm going to go ahead and make this bigger, set my opacity to 100 and set my flow to maybe 20. And then holding down Option, I can select the color I want. So I want to get this more violet color and start painting over these extraneous colors. And here, maybe I'll select our blue-green color, and then maybe the more purpley color for down here. And then these green colors here, I think I'm just going to get rid of by painting over with that teal color. Okay, so that looks pretty good. We've moved all of our colors toward a violet and a blue-green. Now what I want to do is maybe just accentuate the orange in her and also move the kind of blue inside of her glasses more toward our blue-green color. So first let's do the glasses. I think what we can do here is just use a magic wand tool to select inside the glasses. I'm just holding Shift as I do this, clicking in here until everything inside her glasses is in my selection. And we'll do the other side as well. Good enough. All right, and then here what I'll do is add a hue saturation layer, and we'll just push this more toward green. It better matches this background blue-green color, which is what we're trying to achieve here. All right, and then finally, I want to make her a little more orange, and then also maybe push in a little bit of this blue-violet into her shadows. I think I can do that all with one curve layer. So let's go to Select Subject, and then we'll add a curves layer. And in the curves layer for the orange, I'm going to want to add a little bit of red and some green. So let's go to our reds. I want to do this primarily in the highlights. So at the midpoint, I'm going to add a point. That way, when I adjust the highlights here, it's not doing anything to my shadows. And I may have to add 2 points just to make sure that this kind of bottom here stays where it is. I'll just add a little bit of red into our highlights there. And then on the green, do something similar. Add a few points here so that the bottom shadow areas don't move. And just move that a little bit up. And then in my blues, I'm going to do a similar thing, locking it off, but I want to lock off the highlights, which are on the right side of my curve, and then bring up the bottom so that we get a little bit of the blues in there. Now, because this layer is masked, I can't affect the black point because then the black point will not match the background. And your black point, it's very important that your black point matches across your image. So what I'll do is I'll pull this back and then add a point that's not quite at the black point. And then in here is where I'll add a little bit of that blue. And you can see on her jacket, it just kind of integrates it better with this background. So here you can see our before and our after. You can see we've moved it toward this color scheme and it just looks better integrated. It doesn't look so confused. It looks like there was some thought that went into the color of the image itself. So again, a before and an after. For our next image, we're going to do an analogous harmony. An analogous harmony is where all the colors are next to each other on the color wheel. So here you can see if we have violet as our key color, then our analogous would kind of run from red through to blue. And generally you want to stick kind of close to these colors. You don't want to stretch this further than that. So 5 would be the most colors you could use, but generally you kind of want to almost cut it off at the halfway point. If you could kind of see a gradation of color here. Now, one thing I will say, when you're using an analogous color scheme, you're always going to get a better result if you can cross the warm or cool color divider. Now, if we look at the other side of this color wheel, you're going to see that we have basically a split right here, and you can see it says cool colors, warm colors, cool colors, warm colors. So everything on this side of the color wheel is considered a cool color, and everything on this side of the color wheel is considered a warm color. Now, when you're doing color harmony, you really want a warm color and a cool color balancing each other. So when we're doing an analogous color scheme, we don't want to do something like this where all your colors are cool colors, or vice versa. You want to avoid a color scheme like this where all your colors are warm colors. So for this image, it's predominantly red now, but I want to push it a little bit more toward blue and get a warm, cool color combo going in there. So what we're going to do is we're going to pick violets as our key color, and then we're going to push our color scheme so that it kind of rides from the red to the blue color. And let's go ahead and dive in Photoshop and see how we can accomplish that. Okay, the next one we're going to do is analogous. So let's go ahead and open the Street Analogous Harmony. And here you can see an image that's primarily red. It's got a few touches of blue in there, but it's very monochromatic right now. Now, the analogous color scheme, of all the color harmonies, analogous is the one that's the most monochromatic, but you can actually stretch analogous so that it does span from a warm color to a cool color. And in my opinion, that's always going to work best. So let's go ahead and pull our analogous here. And I've made violet the key, and that's because I want our colors to span from the existing red color, which is a warm color, and go all the way to a nice bluish color. So to do that, I'm going to first make a copy of the layer, and here I want to use Camera Raw. It's going to be the easiest way to achieve this. So I'm going to go to Filter, Camera Raw, And with Camera Raw, oops, I have this temperature here. I'm just going to drag this to the left, and you can see right away that I'm getting that blue color, but we still have our pink there. Now, as I move it to the left, I'm starting to lose some of that, so I can actually compensate by just pushing a little bit here as well. So something like this. Let's hit OK. And right away you can see that that actually pushed it to our analogous color scheme. The whole image looks far more interesting as well. But before we jump off of this image, I actually want to show you one other trick that you can use to get your color scheme. I'm going to go ahead and turn off this. And in this one, what I want to do, I'm going to zoom in here. You don't need this color wheel. You can also just pick the colors yourself. But I'm going to go ahead and select my foreground color, and I want that to be a strong blue color. So let's just move this to about there. And then for my background color, I want that to be kind of a red, but I don't want it to be all the way to red. I'm going to push it maybe just a little bit more toward magenta. So something like that. And then we're going to go to here and go to gradient map. And you can see here that it's putting the blue in our shadow areas and then putting this red color into our highlights. Now, if I click on here, I can adjust. If I want more of the red in there, I can kind of push it toward there, hit OK. And then here I can change the adjustment layer here to soft light. And I'm getting a similar effect here, but I have my layer stack. To get this a little more close to this one, I would need to make some further adjustments, but overall this is already getting me pretty close to what I want. I could go in here and maybe pull it out from some of the highlights. So we just go in here, split this by holding down Option, so something like that. And then finally, with a curve layer, I can also go to my blues and just add a little bit more blue to my blacks in here. And there you go. You can see now our image is going from that blue color, stretching out toward the red, and using all the colors in between these 2 points on the color wheel. And that is analogous color. Very interesting and cool look. And here you can see the before and the after. A very simple color grade there. The last color harmony that we're going to do is triadic. And triadic is where you have 3 colors on the color wheel that are equal distance to each other. So in this case, we're going to use red, yellow, and blue, generally the colors of Superman and quite a few other superheroes. But these colors are triadic. And I'm going to use blue as my key color. And you can see in this image, we're pretty close to this color scheme already, although our reds are a little bit too magenta and our yellows are a little bit too green. So we're going to want to fix that. Pretty quick fix to get us this triadic color scheme. Let's go back into Photoshop. And we're going to open the MJ Triadic Harmony. And for this one, let's go ahead and pull in the triadic color wheel. And with triadic, you're basically using 3 spots that are equally distanced on the color wheel. So in this case, we're going to be using blue that is already in her jacket. I want to make her touch of lipstick here red, and I want these kind of greenish blobs in the background to be more of a pure yellow. So to do that, we're going to go first to our hue saturation, and let's go ahead and select these yellow lime green background elements here. Maybe push this a little bit more toward that lime green, and then drag this until we're getting a more pure yellow color. So we don't need to adjust it much. I think just maybe -8. And then that looks good. All right, then the next thing I want to do is I want to select her lip color. You can see right now it's magenta. I want to push that toward red. So I'm just going to push this toward the right. And it looks like about plus 30 gets us to a really nice red color there. And just with that, the whole image actually does look better. It looks better color coordinated. And I think that's about enough. So with an image that already is very close, all you might have to do is push the colors a tiny bit one way or another so that you match your color scheme. Oftentimes, it's just a slight touch of blue in the shadows or just pushing a little bit of warmth into your main image is all you need to go from an image that's almost with color harmony to one that actually matches a color harmony, and it is going to look better that way. All right, so that finishes our images and also finishes this tutorial. Now, if you enjoyed this and want to learn more about color in Photoshop, I highly suggest you check out my color grading masterclass. I'm going to put a link for that in the description of this video. It is a 6-hour masterclass on color in Photoshop. We start with color theory, as we've touched on here, but go even further into color theory, why it works, how to achieve it. We also cover the differences between RGB and CMYK and how to mix colors properly in both. We talk about the histogram, the eyedropper, and then we dive into every adjustment tool for color in Photoshop, and then some specialist techniques and workflows that you can use to achieve better color in Photoshop. By the end of it, you'll have a full mastery of color in Photoshop and also a very good understanding of color theory and how to use colors to get your message across, have greater impact with your images, and just overall increase your creativity. So check that out. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this tutorial, please subscribe to my channel, leave a like, share this video, turn on comments, do all that good stuff, and here are some other tutorials to check out. I'll see you next time.